Welcome to Take It Up with Jessica Lee. Today's guest, I have Aarti Kumar, who's the VP of Sales Operations at BrightEdge. So excited to have you here, Aarti.
I'm super excited to be here and thank you for having me over.
Oh, you're wonderful. You're just like a fabulous star in the tech industry, and I want to hear more about what you do, please, and also about BrightEdge.
Yes, absolutely. So I am the VP of Sales Operations at BrightEdge. So I run the sales operations team, and basically what that means is helping sales with their strategy, with their planning, with their day-to-day operations, so that they can go do what they're best at doing, which is selling BrightEdge. So that's my role. It's a mix of strategic work, and it's a mix of and operational work as well on a day-to-day basis. What is BrightEdge? BrightEdge, we help you get your content out there so that people who need to see it, see it.
Okay. So it's about SEO, organic traffic?
Yes.
Right, optimizing the content for that. Right?
Yes. I mean, I think somebody gave me this statistic and said only 3% of the content that's actually generated is actually found by the people who really need to see it. So it's a very small percentage. So what we help you do is we have a platform that helps manage all of your content so that it ranks on top of the Google search pages. So if anybody's searching for anything that's relevant to the content that you have on Google, use our platform and we will do our best to help you get to top of the rankings of the search pages.
So that's a huge gap then, as far as people searching and the content that's unfound that you can't deliver at the right moment of search. So how does that work? I mean, is it a tool that you would have to continue to leverage? Because SEO rules, I think, continue to change.
Yes, so obviously the search world is dominated by Google, as we all know, and Google controls the algorithm that helps manage that search process, right? So when the algorithm updates, then you have to make sure that your tools are up to date as well. And some of the updates from, like all tools, the algorithm updates from Google are very many, but the significant ones happen at a regular basis, right? And so we have to update our tool at that point. But I think from a search engine engagement point of view, you have to constantly be engaged with your content. So you need a tool and a platform to help you manage that content on a regular basis based on search trends, based on content that you're putting out, what that's changing, what your competitors are doing. All of that goes into the mix in terms of how engaged you need to be with your content.
I think you talk about AI as something that the tool has, that it will accelerate the success. Instead of manually doing this, the system helps you to accelerate.
Yes, absolutely. So think about, I mean, just like any tool, we have a number of different customers, right? And a number of different, so that means that many X more data that we have access to. So when we know what content other people are putting out, and we know how they're leveraging that content and how that content is being found online and what customers are doing to find that content, obviously we use intelligence at our back end to ensure that when we're working on your content, it isn't possible to manually scrub through everything, right? So obviously there's a fair level of intelligence that we rely on based on the vast data troves that we have to figure out how do we modify your content to a large extent from just the intelligence that we've gathered so that you are up front and center in terms of the search results. And we won't survive without using intelligence at our back end.
Okay. Going back to the operations part, as you're scaling globally, how do you ensure efficiency? How do you ensure that all of the markets are served?
Right. So for BrightEdge in particular, we started in the North Americas and we've expanded within the North America, right? Our first office was obviously in Foster City in the Bay Area. Easy to get talent, right? Easier to get talent because most of the talent is here, and people are familiar with SaaS and products, and they're familiar with Google and search engine optimization. So it was fairly easy to set up and move on. And this happened a long time back, way before I joined BrightEdge. And then even within, when we're scaling from that point onwards to a different area in North America, the team chose to move to Cleveland in Ohio.
Okay.
And even from that, even within the North America, just scaling from the Bay Area to scaling to Cleveland is a different ball game completely.
Really?
Right? It is. Think about the talent and think about the cultural nuances that you have to consider in terms of the workforce. Think about the kind of industries that folks in Cleveland, either coming from a different company or say graduating from college, are exposed to, right? The Bay Area is, I think we live in some sort of bubble on our own in many ways because we're so exposed to tech, but Cleveland's not the same. So even expanding, I think from Foster City to Cleveland was a challenge in itself, which we've done successfully, but it involved, of course, scaling our systems and scaling all of the operational back end, which is easier to do because it's in your control. But then scaling also involves hiring people, managing them, and then making sure you're culturally integrating everybody to work as one team together. And that's a learning process.
Okay.
So you learn as you go. In some extent, there's a lot of research that you can do in terms of how other companies have scaled in the area. But if you're one of the first SaaS companies to scale, then it's a lot of on-the-go learning that you do. And so that was just within North America. We've also scaled out into, we're in EMEA, we're in Australia now, we have an office in Japan. And scaling in all these countries is, I think, you have to consider, customer first, right? The way the customer buys and the buyer journey for the customer is sometimes varies across these geographies.
Yeah.
Then countries, I think, have their countries, or even continent, so to speak, they also have their own rules on how the data must be managed, customer data must be managed. You have GDPR rules
That's
now.
That's right, the compliance
European
rules.
Exactly. Yeah, Australia has its own level of compliance rules. And then that's the second. And then third is in terms of staffing and hiring. Each place has its own nuance, right, in terms of the folks that you can, the talent pool that you have, and then onboarding and training and enablement for all of these folks is also different. You have your own sales process and customer process, etc., that you would integrate them with, but also understanding where they're coming from and then morphing your enablement journey to map what you are seeing culturally in that country is also, I think, fairly important.
And that's your responsibility, right? Coming out with the actual training materials in different languages to support different geographies?
Yes, there's another sales operations person who's responsible for doing enablement for a new sales team, so to speak. But yes, part of running sales operations, I think a core part is sales enablement and making sure that your teams are doing the right thing. And that, I think, starts even earlier with having a very clear view of what your sales strategy needs to be, right? What is your plan in this country or geography or anything?
Right, like an enterprise versus mid-market.
Enterprise, mid-market.
Freemium.
Exactly. Or global, or a global segment, our top tier segment. So I think being very clear about the customers that you're going after and then how you're going to sell to those customers, basically your route to market, and then how you're going to organize your sales team. These are keys, I think, upfront. These are foundational. Yeah. And then if you're very clear on this and you sort of get these together and they're all coherent and they all work together, and then I think everything else layers on top of it, right? Your sales comp just follows your strategy. Your sales compensation follows, your sales enablement and training follows. All of these follow the basic foundational strategy that you put together.
What about the IT stack? Because I think there's so many marketing automation tools and sales tools out there, and I think you use several of them. So how do they all work together? You can just explain the scenario on the tech side.
I don't think a day goes by where I don't get 10 emails from some new company selling a new tool on the sales side, and I used to reply to each and every one before, but now I just can't. I just don't have the time. And sometimes I feel like I'm missing out because there's so much going on on the technology side, new tools, and I don't know what I'm missing out and not replying to some of these emails, right? But there are some interesting ones as well. So I think the sales stack is about as crowded as the marketing stack right now, right? 4 years back when I started in sales operations, we had probably just a few handful of tools that were fairly popular that you could pick from and choose from, right? And so you had the time to go through all the analysis and understand what's working and what's not working and what would work well now. Now somebody showed me a grid on a piece of paper, which is, I can't even read the font, right? You need a magnifying glass to read the font of, probably age as well. But there's like so many tools out there. It's in that colorful grid. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there's this colorful stack grid of all the different tools in different stages of the sales process that you can use for driving efficiency, right? And for us, in terms of at least where BrightEdge is, we obviously rely on Salesforce. That's our CRM of choice, and we've had it for a long time. So any tools that we buy over and above the CRM is something that needs to be integrated with the Salesforce tool. And some of these tools have been in place for a while, probably because somebody used them at some other company and found that it really worked miracles, or at least
you're familiar with the how to use it too.
Exactly, familiar with usage. It's easy to use, and it's led to some fair level of productivity, and so we've adopted as well. And today, when I'm reviewing some of these tools for engagement, it's probably because we've moved forward in terms of the sales strategy and process, and so we need to upgrade our own tool stack to make sure that we're keeping up with the scaling that we're going through.
Right.
And when I look at these things, if somebody recommends a really good tool that they've used before, either from the sales operations team or sales team, then it's something I would definitely evaluate. But then we go through the normal sales process as for any other SaaS tool.
I think when you have changes, sometimes very hard. So it requires a bit of persuading the internal group to move along from one tool to the next. Can you talk about leadership and change management in the organization then, as you're growing too?
Yes, and I've also spent a lot of time at Symantec. I think 7.5 years. Obviously, Symantec, huge scale company, large company, much bigger, and now BrightEdge is a startup, 400 employees. So I find it's a very different game, right? So in terms of tool adoption at BrightEdge itself, a company of this size, I think a lot has to do with leadership approval, right? Because I think the sales teams, as long as you show them something, or you help them do their job, which is go sell more and spend less time on administrative and operational stuff, they are more open to adopting, right? I think at a company of this size, it's also important to get leadership approval. Like the CEO is super critical, right? He has to buy in to a lot of these tools, because at the end of the day, there are 10 different things that you have to do for a company this size, right? First, you don't want to break anything that's working, right? And then anything that you put in is going to be disruption, and so it has to show that, I mean, you have some way, or at least a business case has to show that there is 10x productivity that you're going to drive from this, and we really can't go beyond where we're scaling right now without breaking something if we don't adopt the tool, right? So that's the mentality at this level of company. It was very different at Symantec, right? Symantec, obviously a big, huge company, and people were open as well. The sales leadership was involved, but they said it was a more free hand, right? As long as they thought that this was leading, and don't break anything, of course, that's critical, but as long as this is leading the sales teams forward and something the sales teams feel it's useful, there's obviously more budget as well to deploy some of these tools, we'd go deploy it. So you'd have to get like mid-level management approval at that stage, at a company that size first, and get them to buy in, and I find it different on this side, where the change management and lead and persuasion seems to start more at a higher level, top down, rather than at the middle level. At least that's been my experience.
Okay. I think that everybody seems to be saying the challenges we have include recruiting, talent, right? Yes. So beyond the talent, what other challenges do you have in the SaaS industry, in the ad tech marketing industry?
I think I think talent would be the key, and I think experience as well, right? So the ad tech, I mean, is kind of niche a little in some sense, right? Maybe there's a lot of folks who worked in an agency that we do find, but then translating that, and I can only speak from the sales side, right? I'm technical. I'm not very familiar with, so technical might be its own, engineering and technical side might be its own thing, but from the sales side, in terms of hiring and I think it's finding that level of experience where they understand SaaS, where they're able to talk SaaS to the customer, and they're able to really understand what the customer's pain point is and understand what the customer's trying to solve for. because the attention span with the customer is very small, right? As we all know, and we sell into the marketing departments, right? Obviously, much larger customers, we'd have to connect with the CMO at some point, right? But at the medium level business customer, as well as customers who are just trying to, like similar to Semantic, maybe a large company, but the marketing person wants to try a new tool to see if he can move his data and his results forward. Their attention span is very low, right? And I wouldn't say very low. It's in the same way they are being hounded by a bunch of marketing tech tools themselves, right? So finding that talent that can engage with that marketing customer of ours, understanding our platform to a large extent, and understanding customers' pain point and tying those together and selling, that's I think hard. It's been quite the challenge, and not to mention the competitiveness in the Bay Area for talent, right? It's especially millennials. I mean, they're looking for. They don't. Maybe my generation, we stayed on jobs much longer, and I'm not even that old. But I find millennials, they're sort of 3 years and they're gone, and you invest so much in training, right? For somebody to become productive on the job,
understand the platform,
they have to go through the training process. It takes 6 months, and then in a year from then, and for them to start producing and being productive, it easily takes 6 to 9 months, right? Getting the whole process together, understanding the tool, understanding technology, understanding the language, understanding the customer, understanding BrightEdge, all of those pieces to fit together and getting comfortable takes 6 months. And then if you lose the talent because of whatever reason, competitiveness, higher pay outside, maybe you go into a more cybersecurity industry, which is
it's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic, and it's much more scope there versus working in advertising, just in ad tech. You don't generate your return on that employee that you've hired, right? So
that's why
retaining them is really hard.
I guess that's why a lot of companies make it fun. Right? Make it fun, and then make it so that there's a sense of mission, like there's a purpose. Like the younger generation of workers coming in are looking for more than just a paycheck. They're looking for more than just a job. They feel like it's almost like, I don't want to just get married. I want to be in love.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's perfectly understandable, right? And so a lot of the folks that's coming out of college, you think about it, they spend so much time on their job. This is their family, right? And if they don't belong, they don't feel like the company's invested in them, they're going to just move on to the next role that they think is going to get them to where they want to be in 5 years, 10 years down the line, right?
And I think customers are also like that when it comes to SaaS products. You buy it very easily with a swipe or a credit card, but then you can also turn off and go to another vendor very quickly too. So and so I think that's where, at least for BrightEdge, the emphasis comes in on our customer success, right? That's important.
Very, very, very critical. I mean, I think we live and die by our customers, obviously, and then on an indirect level by our customer success team,
right? The retention of that relationship, growing that.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, it's very easy. I mean, the switching costs are very low in terms of moving from one platform to another, right? All your data transfers, and for somebody to pick up a new platform, I mean, we sell them saying this is super easy to pick up. Somebody else, your competitor, is going to sell them, hey, guess what? This is super easy to pick up and switch to as well.
Right.
And it's the same when we're switching customers out from a competitor to us, right? Because its switching costs are very low. So it becomes important that your customer, you ensure as a company that your customers constantly engaging with your product throughout.
And seeing value.
And seeing value, exactly. Right? And
you have some big names companies using your product.
Yes,
so it's a good tool.
Yeah, a lot of a large, think about a large retailer like Macy's or Nordstrom's, they would super benefit from our tool, right? Think of the number of pages they have on the website, right? Every product has a page. So you think about the hundreds and thousands of SKUs that they have. It's every product is out there, right? I mean, every product has its own page. So at the marketing person at one of these large retailers or even a hotel agency, I think we had at one point 90% of all the large hotels were signed up with hotel chains were signed up with BrightEdge,
That's awesome.
like a Marriott. So think about the number of pages that they have, and as a platform, it's impossible to manually manage and optimize each page. You can do it.
Automate
so you automate that with a platform like ours, right? And so for a customer like that, it's critical that you can't just turn the switch on and just move on and come back 3 months down the line and see, is this tool working or not, right?
I mean, that's you have to constantly engage.
Shortest path to failure, right? Yeah. So for us, our customer success has to constantly engage with these customers to ensure that they're delivering value and they're seeing the results that they are paying you to see.
Right. I mean, I think in marketing you have a limited number of budget, so you're going to spend it on paid advertising, but that can get very expensive to drive lead generation. So I mean, for sure, organic traffic is a must. And how do you increase more to get more traffic and quality traffic coming in organically? Yes. And that's the kind of tool that you provide to help people do that.
Exactly. And people spend a lot of money on paid search, right? I mean, somebody told me if you look at the marketing department budgets, it's 90% of their search spend goes into paid search, and there's only 10% that's done through organic, right? But if the thing is that if the organic piece is done right, if it's done right, and it can be done
powerful.
Right. Yeah, it's very powerful, right? The return on investment that you would get out of doing your organic search right is so much higher than paid search, because the tools that you employ for, it's a SaaS platform, right? So how much is that going to be? So you implement it and then you follow through and make sure, even if you dedicate one person in your company to search engine optimization and you pay for the customer success for at say a company like BrightEdge, even with all of that, I think your ROI would be 10x what it would be with paid search.
Yeah, I agree, because I've done marketing, all of the roles in marketing, and I can definitely agree with you that organic search traffic, it's so powerful. You can just like tweak it and pull that lever right.
Yeah,
you get so much more return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Aarti, I'd love to hear about your background. How did you advance into a VP role at such a young age? You look like you're in your 20s.
I wish I were in my 20s. But no, where I am is good. So I would say it came with a lot of mentorship and support from a lot of folks at, I would say, Symantec primarily, because that's the company I joined right after business school. And I joined one of the leadership programs that the CFO had in place at that point. And that was important because those rotation programs that they have, that gives you exposure to the entire company, and you're meeting a lot of the senior leaders, because most of your projects you're delivering to them, right? Okay. So it's a great chance to understand and meet the folks who are making decisions, to understand how they function, how they work, what's important to them, what's not important, etc., right? So you sort of get, I think I got my first tips from there in terms of how do I shape my career to where it needs to go. And then from there, we also had a strong women's network at Symantec, women's program, where they did assign mentors to you. If you wanted, you could choose if you wanted to have a mentor. And some of the folks there really opened doors, like seriously opened doors. There's at one point, I remember in my career, I was thinking, what do I do next? A mentor of mine introduced me to some other person that they know was searching for a role. It was very different from what I'd always done, but it was a fantastic opportunity to learn more about the company and be front and center and deliver value. And
so I took it.
I took it, but I would never have found that person without my mentor opening that door.
Right. The connection.
I think a lot of it is I think a lot of it is driven from there. And third, I think it's important for at least personally for me, I found this to work, is to diversify your experience. So I started in finance out of business. Actually, my career before that was in engineering. Okay. So I did product and design engineering for 3-4 years. Went to business school after that. Started in finance at Symantec. From finance, I went to business operations. Business operations to marketing to sales operations. And then sales operations is where
you have done a lot.
So
that's great.
Yeah, but each of those roles have come with their own great experience, and now I feel like I know the company, different divisions much more than I would have if I'd stayed in a single function.
That's right.
And so that's helped me grow as well.
So then the future will be a CEO role for you then.
I'm actually very happy where I am right now. I love this. I love the operation space. So we'll see. 2 young kids. So we'll see.
Maybe not bright.
Future is bright. It's very bright.
You are at BrightEdge.
Yes, at BrightEdge. Future is bright, and maybe in a few years we'll see where we go from here.
Well, thank you for being on the show and talking with me. I've learned so much, and I hope you have too.
Yes.
And we will connect again next year when you come back and tell us a lot more about what's happening at BrightEdge
Yes.
with the AI.
I'm sure, yeah, the industry would have moved light years ahead in a very short amount of time. So I'm very happy to have been here and to have talked to you, Jessica, and happy to come back.
Great. Thank you very much, Aarti.
Thank you. Thanks.
There you have it. Take it up with Jessica Lee.